The Chargers are 3-0. They're also 3-0 in the AFC West. They are in full control right now, and this has been a long time coming for Charger fans. What a great win on Sunday against Denver. It definitely wasn't our prettiest win this season so far, but the Chargers found a way to get a win. And I had put this out on X, and I also put out a video on TikTok and Instagram that if this was any other coach, if this was Brandon Staley, if this was Mike McCoy, if this was Anthony Lynn, if this was Norv Turner, the Chargers would have chargered and found a way to lose this game. But the leadership of the Chargers, the poise of this team, they found a way to come through when it matters most, put points on the board, and finish with the ball last and win the game and be 3-0 right now. Awesome. When we're going to go through the good in this game, we're also going to go through the bad in this game. We'll go through PFF grades and then looking ahead to Sunday's matchup against the Giants. If you haven't already, be sure to like, subscribe to Electric Edge Podcast on YouTube. Also, you can listen on Spotify. Follow me on X at Electric Edge Pod, as well as TikTok. And I'm also on Instagram too at Electric Edge Pod. So follow me on all social media platforms. A lot to get through in this episode, so without further ado, let's jump right in. All right, so let's talk about the good that happened on Sunday. Chargers, for the first time this season, didn't hold a lead. They never gave up their lead against the Chiefs, and the same thing with the Raiders. However, Sunday was a different tune. But with that being said, the Chargers did find a way to win 23-20. They won on a Cam Dicker game-winning field goal as time expired. A win's a win in the book, no matter how you get it. The Chargers have set the tone. Every other AFC West team right now is 1-2, and we have a game on all of them. So the Chargers took care of business, especially with the gauntlet they had these first three games. Going to Brazil, playing in Vegas, finally coming home. All three of those games were division games. That is a tough stretch to start with. But this team, like I had mentioned in prior episodes, this team is different. They're built different. Leadership's different. They believe that they're going to compete at the top of the AFC in general. And they made a statement win on Sunday. They proved the point. Beat the Broncos, which I had mentioned this was the most complete team they have faced so far, and they found a way to get it done. Let's talk about Herbert. This was not Herbert's cleanest game. I think his completion percentage was about 60%, and let's pull up his stats from yesterday. So Herbert was 28 of 47. He had 300 yards passing. His completion percentage was 59.6. He had one touchdown, one pick, which you can argue wasn't his fault. The ball was tipped twice going to Quentin Johnson. He took 5 sacks, and we're going to go through the beating he took yesterday. And his rating was 76.6. On the ground, he didn't use his legs as much this game. He had 2 carries for 6 yards. But Herbert, when it mattered most, found a way to get the ball down the field, throw that insane pass to Keenan Allen in the end zone. You had Zach Allen coming through Zion Johnson. He steps up in the pocket, comes out, Nick Bonito's on him, and hits Keenan Allen. Now, I want to go through the next-gen stats on that throw too, because it's insane. So Next Gen Stats put this out yesterday. It said Justin Herbert's 20-yard touchdown pass to Keenan Allen had a completion probability of 16.7%. Herbert's most improbable completion since week 8 of 2024. Keenan Allen's separation in the end zone was 0.6 yards. There may be 2 or 3 quarterbacks that could make that play in the NFL. And Herbert he found a way to step up, move around the pocket, pressure's coming, zips the ball to only where Keenan Allen can catch it, and ties the game right up with 2 minutes and 40 seconds to go in the fourth. Simply amazing. Like I said, this was not Herbert's best game as far as stats this year, but he still threw for 300 yards. He leads the NFL in passing yards. He's thrown for 860 yards so far in 3 games. Geno Smith, surprisingly enough, is right behind him with 831. Daniel Jones is at 816, and Dak Prescott's at 800 yards passing. Justin Herbert is playing at an MVP level. Herbert is proving all the doubters and haters wrong from all the noise last year with the 4-pick playoff game that he's the real deal and he's one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL. I've believed it. Charger fans have believed it. Some Herbert fans have believed it. But there's a lot of haters and naysayers out there saying he sucks, he's not clutch. Well, Justin Herbert is shutting a lot of mouths this year, and I can only hope that this is just the beginning of an amazing year for Herbert and the Chargers. Let's touch on some of the positives from the offense. Quentin Johnson had another Amazing game. He had 89 yards receiving. Keenan Allen, 7 catches, 65 yards, and a touchdown. Caught that game-time touchdown when it mattered most. Finally, the running game has gotten going. I have talked about this in both my episodes. The Chargers need to find a way to get over 100 yards rushing, and they did that on Sunday. So as a team, the Chargers finished with 106 yards rushing. Hampton had 70 yards rushing. Najee had 28 yards rushing. Herbert had 6, and Darius Davis had 2. I had mentioned that the bulk of the rushing yards needed to come from our 2 running backs, which it did. They had 98 yards combined. So I think this is the starting point of really getting this running game going. Hampton finally had his breakout game as a Charger. He played phenomenal. Like I said, he had 70 yards rushing. He had a touchdown. And then also out of the backfield catching, he had 6 catches for 59 yards. Najee Harris went down with an Achilles injury. He tore his Achilles. He'll be out for the year. I think Hampton finally had his coming out game from the Chargers, but I think this is only a sign to come for that Chargers rushing game, that Hampton is going to be taking a lot of the workload going forward. Another performance I want to talk about on the offense, and I have been super high on this guy since training camp. Rondé Gatson finally was active on Sunday, and he came to play. Gatson had 5 catches for 46 yards, and he had some catches that were big. There was one play where I think it was 3rd down, and he's running towards the sideline, makes a sideline catch. I've been super high on him since training camp. I kind of understood why he wasn't active the first 2 games, but with Disley out on Sunday, the Chargers had activated Fisk and Gadsden, but I don't see how he becomes inactive going forward now. He's a much better offensive tight end than either Disley and Conklin combined. I think he's going to be a big part of this offense going forward. It was great to see his first game in the NFL. He came to play, had some clutch catches. And like I said, I've been big on him since training camp. I thought that the Chargers stole him in the 5th round. And Justin Herbert finally has that big physical offensive tight end that he can throw to. Very similar to Gerald Everett when he was on the Chargers. He's physical. He can catch the ball, but it was very awesome to see 2 rookies come to play on Sunday and put up some big numbers and help the Chargers get a win against Denver. All right, let's also talk about the defense, right? Bend, don't break. Chargers defense gave up 20 points. The offense was the issue trying to get it going. Let's go through stats. So Bo Nix had 153 yards passing. Total team rushing was 118. So the Chargers defense still kept them under 300 yards offensively on Sunday. The defense really had to step up. The offense had some struggles getting things going. We're going to talk about the pressure rates of Herbert, some of the offensive line issues that arise on Sunday. But this defense is so solid. I think they're playing at such a high level, and this is a big reason why that the Chargers are 3-0. Also, just on the defensive side, so the Broncos on Sunday had 13 third down situations. They were 2 of 13, and 10 of those 13 were beyond 10 yards. So this was their third down breakdowns. 3rd and 20, 3rd and 12, 3rd and 19, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 11, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 13, and 3rd and 10. The defense did their job. They had that one bad play towards the end of the first half where Sutton got open and threw down the field for touchdowns. That felt like it was a momentum shifter. Once again, when it mattered most, the defense stopped Bo Nix. They stopped the run, and they found a way to keep them under 300 yards offensively. So kudos once again to the defense. All right, let's talk about some of the bad. Najee Harris got hurt on Sunday. I think it was a play action play. Goes to run. The replay shows his calf buckle a little bit, and it turns out it's an Achilles tear, so he's out for the year. That's a massive blow, especially with the 1-2 tandem that was rolling. And I thought Najee Harris was running really well. He was running hard, getting those extra yards. So that's going to be a massive blow to this run game. Chargers have some options. Vidal is on the practice squad, so I could see them calling him up. Naheem Hines as well, since he was with them in the preseason. I think he's a free agent. He can also get a call. I also tweeted out maybe call the Browns for Rocket Sanders. I just don't think Ortiz is going to trade a pick for him, but I'm sure the Chargers will find a way to fill that void in some capacity. But Hampton's going to have to take the brunt of this now. It's not going to be a shared backfield. But that really sucked yesterday, seeing him go down. And he just knew right away that he was hurt, and it wasn't good. He wasn't getting up. had to be helped off the field and put on a cart and taken to the locker room. So pretty unfortunate to see. But as Elijah Molden told us fans at training camp, the injury rate in the NFL is 100%. And injuries are part of the game. Injuries happen to every team, which is how do you adapt and overcome. Another area of concern is it seems like the offensive line came back down to earth. Trey Pipkins did not have a great game. Mekhi Becton went out with a concussion. Then you had Njamri Sailor, who got manhandled on one play. Joe Alt didn't have his best game. The holes in the offensive line became apparent because Denver loves the blitz. So this is something that they'll need to address. It always comes back to my point that this should have been addressed more in the offseason. But who we have is who we got to roll with. I'm hoping Becton isn't out for too long. Hopefully he can play on Sunday. But let's talk about this offensive line and the pressure rate that Herbert faced yesterday. So Herbert was pressured on almost 55% of his dropbacks against the Broncos. This was his highest pressure rate he's faced in any game in his career. With that pressure rate, he completed 10 of 23 attempts under pressure for 143 yards with his game-tying touchdown to Keenan Allen and a pick. He also took 5 sacks. He also got hit 14 times yesterday. That's the most a Chargers quarterback has been hit in the last 20 years. They got to keep Herbert upright. Now, there was one play where they had Matlock blocking Nick Bonito and Alt was blocking someone else. And I'm saying to myself, why would you let Matlock block one of the best defensive ends in the NFL? Didn't make sense. But they need to do a better job protecting Herbert. Got to keep him healthy. Got to keep him upright. So hopefully this week in practice, they scheme a little better, finding ways for Herbert to get the ball out quickly, get the run game more involved. Like I said, Greg Roman did a much better job this week with the run game, getting it more involved, more of a balance per se. But can't have Herbert take that many hits. Just too much. I know the dude's a beast, but his track record in his career, he's had rib injuries, shoulder injuries, ankle injuries. Can't happen. He is the key for the Chargers to be successful this year. Have to find a way to protect him better. And just onto the offensive line, too. So pressures allowed against the Broncos. Trey Pipkins had 9 pressures allowed. He gave up 1 sack and 2 hits. John Marie Salyer, 3 pressures, 1 sack and 1 hit. Brad Bozeman, 2 pressures, 1 hit. Zion Johnson only gave up 1 pressure. And I think it was on the play where Zach Allen went around him, then Herbert made that throw into the end zone. Joe Alt as well, 2 pressures and 1 sack. And then Austin Deckles was in the game too because Pipkin got poked in the eye, I think. He gave up 1 pressure. Pressures are part of the game, but we can't take hits against Herbert, and he can't have 5 sacks in the game. Got to keep him upright. And even with all that being said, even with all the pressure Justin Herbert was facing yesterday, he still found a way to throw for 300 yards. Also, that fourth quarter from PFF, it was the highest graded QB in the fourth quarter on Sunday. He had a 90.2 grading from PFF. In the fourth quarter, he was 12 for 15, 122 passing yards, 1 touchdown, and he went for 9 first downs. So something clicked in the fourth quarter. They finally got it going. A lot more of the short passes. They're throwing a lot to Hampton. Got the run game going. Him up Conkey and a few. Keenan Allen. So whatever the game plan adjusted in the fourth quarter worked, and the Chargers found a way to win. Turnovers. Let's talk about turnovers. So the Chargers had 2 turnovers on Sunday. Darius Davis fumbled a kickoff in the third quarter, which gave the ball back to Denver. That's when they went up 10. And then Herbert had a pick to Quentin Johnson while they were driving. I believe it was in the second quarter. The Chargers did not win the turnover battle on Sunday and yet still found a way to win. And I had talked about this in my last episode that especially in divisional games, you need to win the turnover battle. And when you're in the red zone, you need to score. It was not the cleanest game on either of those points. But regardless of that being said, a win's a win, and I'll take it anyway the Chargers can get it. This last point, though, I'll talk about, and it's not a bad on us, it's a bad on Denver. I talked about being disciplined, and discipline meaning penalties. Denver had a ton of penalties yesterday. They were shooting themselves in the foot. I mean, you had personal foul calls, offsides. Broncos had 10 penalties for 90 yards yesterday. Like I said, especially in division games, they get chippy. You have to win the penalty battle too. And Denver definitely shot themselves in the foot with all the penalties that they had yesterday. But that's the way the game happens. The Chargers were disciplined. They didn't commit nearly as many. You don't give up free yardage. That's how you win ball games. Be disciplined, not only when it comes to penalties, but be disciplined also when you're in scoring situations. The Chargers could have definitely been better in scoring situations, but on the penalty front, they definitely came out on top. Yeah, the Chargers yesterday had 3 penalties for 25 yards. That's a big swing as far as the Chargers penalty yards versus the Broncos penalty yards. All right, let's go through some PFF grades for yesterday's game. So let's start on the offensive side of the ball. Number 1, OG. Rondé Gadsden had an 84 grading. Joe Alt was at 80. Najee Harris with 79.3. Austin Deckles, right tackle, filled up for Pipkins, 76.4, and Herbert was 74.1. Bottom 5 PFF offensive grades. Like I mentioned, this is one of the concerns, fixing this offensive line. 1, Tyler Conklin at 39.8, Mekhi Becton at 42.8, Trey Pipkins at 43, Tucker Fisk at 48.3, and John Marie Salyer at 48.4. And I know he wasn't mentioned, but I just want to touch on Quentin Johnson real quick. So right now, through 3 games for Quentin Johnson, he has 14 receptions, 239 yards. He's 6th in the NFL, 3 TDs, tied for 3rd, 7.1 yards after catch for 4th in the NFL. 6 contested catches, which was something that he struggled with the first 2 years in the league. So it's whatever he's done the offseason has finally started to click. He's becoming a big playmaker for this team. He's had 7 first downs as well. And Herbert has 121 passer rating when he targets Quentin Johnson. So Quentin Johnson has finally arrived. It's almost like Herbert's looking for him now. Let's hope that this is a sign for things to come and he continues on this run. I've already mentioned that I think he's going to have a 1,000-yard season this year. Let's hope I'm right. All right, back to PFF grades. So let's talk about defense. Top 5 PFF defensive grades for the Chargers. Troy Dye leads at 82.9, Ben St. Juste at 78.3, Tier Tart, who's been playing phenomenal, 78, Justin Aboye, 77.2, and Tuli Tuipulotu at 75. Bottom 5, Dante Jackson, 29.5, Alohi Gilman, who I don't know if it was St. Juste or Gilman, but I think it was Gilman who had that blown coverage on that 4th and 2 where Sutton scored that touchdown towards the end of the first half. Caleb Murphy, 36 points per heap, still at 52.2, and Diane Henley at 54.8. Diane Henley put out a tweet after the game that he's down 13 pounds since he's been sick. I think last Monday night was pure heart and adrenaline, but let's hope that he can get healthy this week and put some weight back on and get back to that high level that he plays at. I can only imagine what he's going through being sick for almost 2 weeks now. That's pretty rough. And then just to touch on the defense too. So this is pressures generated versus the Broncos. Tooley had 6, Tier Tart had 2, Henley had 2, Caleb Murphy had 1, John Ray Caldwell had 1, Tahib Still had 1, he had a hit, Justin Aboye had a hit, Derwin James had a sack, Troy Dye had a sack, Bud Dupree had a pressure, and Deshaun Hand had a pressure. So 18 pressures yesterday on Bo Nix. And Tooley has up to 16 total pressures on the season. So he's going to be a big part of this defensive line with Mac being out. So hopefully he continues his continuation of generating pressure. Hopefully he gets his first sack next week against the Giants. But he's been playing well too. So it's good to see other contributors stepping up and making plays on the defense. It's not just 1 or 2 individuals. It's everyone contributing and making plays, being a forces as one on defense. So like I said, this game was probably a game that the Chargers would have lost with any other coach. I could see it now. There'd be a fumble, there'd be a pick, something would happen and the Chargers would charge and they would lose this game. But this team is different. Leadership's different. There's a belief that we're going to win the close games, and the Chargers found a way to do it. So going into the 4th quarter yesterday, the Chargers had a 10.8% win probability late in the 4th quarter. It would have been a 0 with Brandon Staley, let's all be honest. But this team is built different. And it's not like Herbert, everyone wants to say Herbert isn't clutch, he chokes. Herbert's had game-winning drives. Like, he's gone down the field and scored. And it would be the defense has some blown coverage and someone gets down the field and, time's expiring and they're in field goal range and they don't get the ball back. And the Chargers in prior years would have given up tons of yards when the Broncos got the ball back after the Chargers tied the game. It would just be like clockwork. Like, you just knew it was coming. But this team, like I said, this team's different. They're built different. Leadership's different. And they've really made a statement, not only in the AFC, but in the NFL, that they're the real deal this year. So this week's upcoming matchup against the Giants at MetLife in New Jersey. If anyone watched the Giants-Chiefs game yesterday, Russell Wilson had no answers for the Chiefs defense. They get 160 yards passing and a pick, or 2 picks actually. So the Chargers should take care of business on Sunday, but I'll have another episode out to go through that matchup and talk about my predictions. But as of right now, I've predicted the Chargers would be 3-0. So I had for this game against Denver, I had the Chargers winning 27-24. I had the point spread right by 3, just a little bit too high. So I'm 3-0 on the year. I've been pretty consistent with my score predictions as well. I've had the spread right, just not the score. So for next week, I'll go through that in my next video of my predictions for the game against the Giants. Will be a good episode, so be sure to check it out. But if you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe to Like Dredge Podcast on YouTube and on Spotify. So if you're in the car driving, if you're heading to the game, have a listen on Spotify. Follow me on my social media platforms. I'm on TikTok, X, and Instagram. Drop me a follow. Say hi. As always, leave me some comments. Let me know what your thoughts were on Sunday's game against Denver. What went well? What didn't go well in your eyes? Love reading feedback from Charger fans. Drop me some comments below. It's a great start to the season. Let's hope we keep it rolling. So as always, go Chargers and bolt up.